Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to begin Chapter 2 of Harry Potter. Now, Chapter 1, the video was 30 minutes long, and I think that was probably too long to sit and listen. But I also think that it was hard to upload. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to upload in 10-minute sections. I'll find good places to stop every 10 minutes, and so I'll do the whole chapter, but it'll be in little 10-minute videos. What that's going to mean is that I can show you the pictures more often. They're going to be the same pictures, but I'll show them to you at the beginning and end of each section. So for the whole chapter, here are the pictures for Chapter 2. That's a really good picture. And it takes up the whole page, which is exciting. Now the next page doesn't really have illustrations, but it does have some on the edges. We're going to have to ask Adam about those spiders. They're all around the edges of the page. And then we have lots and lots of presents on this page. And a gorilla. Maybe that's an orangutan, actually. And we'll have to figure out who that is. And another really big picture. And then we have this one goes through. And then that's it. Chapter 3, the letter from no one. So let's go back to the beginning. And then just like in the last one, the page is going to go dark. And you're going to listen. But after 10 minutes, I'll stop and show the pictures again. And then we'll make a new video for the next section. All right, so here we go. Chapter 2, The Vanishing Glass. Nearly 10 years had passed since the Dursleys had woken up to find their nephew on the front step, but Privet Drive had hardly changed at all. The sun rose on the same tidy front gardens and lit up the brass number 4 on the Dursleys' front door. It crept into their living room, which was almost exactly the same as it had been on the night when Mr. Dursley had seen the fateful news report about the owls. Only the photographs on the mantelpiece really showed how much time had passed. 10 years ago, there had been lots of pictures of what looked like a large beach ball wearing different colored bobble hats. But Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby, and now the photographs showed a large blond boy riding his first bicycle on a roundabout at the fair, playing a computer game with his father, being hugged and kissed by his mother. The room held no sign at all of another boy living in that house. Yet Harry Potter was still there, asleep at the moment, but not for long. His Aunt Petunia was awake, and it was her shrill voice which made the first noise of the day. "Up! Get up now!" Harry woke with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. "Up!" she screeched. Harry heard her walking towards the kitchen, and then the sound of the frying pan being put on the cooker. He rolled back onto his back and tried to remember the dream he had been having. It had been a good one. There had been flying motorbike in it. He had a funny feeling he had had the same dream before. His aunt was back outside the door. "Are you up yet?" she demanded. "Nearly," said Harry. "Well, get a move on. I want you to look after the bacon. And don't you dare let it burn. I want everything perfect on Duddy's birthday." Harry groaned. "What did you say?" His aunt snapped through the door. Nothing. Dudley's birthday. How could he have forgotten? Harry got slowly out of bed and started looking for socks. He found a pair under his bed, and after pulling a spider off of them, put them on. Harry was used to spiders because the cupboard under the stairs was full of them, and that was where he slept. When he was dressed, he went down the hall into the kitchen. The table was almost hidden beneath all Dudley's birthday presents. It looked as though Dudley had gotten a new computer he wanted, not to mention the second television and the racing bike. Exactly why Dudley wanted a racing bike was mystery to Harry, as Dudley was very fat and hated exercise, unless, of course, it involved punching somebody. Dudley's favorite punching bag was Harry, but he couldn't often catch him. Harry didn't look it, but he was very fast. Perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard, but Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. He looked even smaller and skinnier than he really was, because all he had to wear were old clothes of Dudley's, and Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. Harry had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of Stella tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him in the nose. The one thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead, which was shaped like a bolt of lightning. He had had it as long as he could remember, and the first question he could ever remember asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had got it. "In the car crash when your parents died," she had said, "and don't ask questions." Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for the quiet life with the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry was turning the bacon. "Comb your hair," he barked by way of morning greeting. About once a week, Uncle Vernon looked over the top of his newspaper and shouted that Harry needed a haircut. Harry must have had more haircuts than the rest of the boys in his class put together, but it made no difference. His hair simply grew that way, all over the place. Harry was frying eggs by the time Dudley arrived in the kitchen with his mother. Dudley looked a lot like Uncle Vernon. He had a large pink face, not much neck, small watery blue eyes, and thick blonde hair that lay smoothly on his thick fat head. Aunt Petunia often said that Dudley looked like a baby angel. Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig. Harry put the plate of eggs and bacon on the table, which was difficult as there wasn't much room. Dudley, meanwhile, was counting his presents. His face fell. 36, he said, looking up at his mother and father. "That's 2 less than last year." "Darling, you haven't counted Auntie Marge's present. See? It's right here under this big one from Mummy and Daddy." "All right then, 37 then," said Dudley, going red in the face. Harry could see a huge Dudley tantrum coming on, began wolfing down his bacon as fast as possible in case Dudley turned the table over. Aunt Petunia obviously scented danger too, because she said quickly, "And we'll buy you another 2 presents when we're out today. How's that, Popkin? 2 more presents? Is that all right?" Dudley thought for a moment. It looked like hard work. Finally he said slowly, "So I'll have 39 sweetums," said Aunt Petunia. "Oh," Dudley sat down heavily and grabbed the nearest parcel. "All right, then." Uncle Vernon chuckled. "Little Tyke wants his money's worth, just like his father. Atta boy, Dudley." He ruffled Dudley's hair. At that moment, the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it while Harry and Uncle Vernon watched Dudley unwrap the racing bike, a camera, a remote control airplane, 16 new computer games, and a video recorder. He was ripping the paper off a gold wristwatch when Aunt Petunia came back from the telephone looking both angry and worried. "Bad news, Vernon," she said. "Mrs. Figg's broken her leg. She can't take him." She jerked her head in Harry's direction. Dudley's mouth fell open in horror, but Harry's heart gave a leap. Every year on Dudley's birthday, his parents took him and a friend out for the day to Adventure Park, hamburgers, or even the movies. Every year, Harry was left behind with Mrs. Figg, a mad old lady who lived 2 streets away. Harry hated it there. The whole house smelled of cabbage, and Mrs. Figg made him look at photographs of all the cats she'd ever owned. "Now what?" said Aunt Petunia, looking furiously at Harry, as though he'd planned this. Harry knew he ought to feel sorry that Mrs. Figg had broken her leg, but it wasn't easy when he reminded himself it would be a whole year before he had to look at Tibbles, Snowy, Mr. Paws, and Tufty again. "We could phone Marge," Uncle Vernon suggested. "Don't be silly, Vernon. She doesn't like the boy." The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he wasn't there, or rather as though he was something very nasty that couldn't understand them, like a slug. "What about what's-her-name, your friend Yvonne? On holiday in Majorca," snapped Aunt Petunia. You could just leave me here, Harry put in hopefully. He'd be able to watch what he wanted on television for a change and maybe even have a go on Dudley's computer. Aunt Petunia looked as though she thought she'd just swallowed a lemon. And come back and find the house in ruins, she snarled. I won't blow up the house, said Harry, but they weren't listening. I suppose we could take him with us to the zoo, said Aunt Petunia slowly, and leave him in the car. The car's new. He's not sitting in it alone. Dudley began to cry loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been years since he'd really cried, but he knew that if he screwed up his face and wailed, his mother would give him anything he wanted. Dinky Duddy Dums, don't cry. Mummy won't let him spoil your special day, she cried, flinging her arms around him. I don't want him to come, Dudley yelled between huge pretend sobs. He always spoils everything. He shot Harry a nasty grin through the gap in his mother's arms. Just then the doorbell rang. Oh, good grief, they're here, said Aunt Petunia frantically. And a moment later, Dudley's best friends, Piers Polkiss, walked in with his mother. Piers was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms back behind their backs while Dudley hit them. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. Okay, so we're a little bit over the 10-minute mark. So I'm going to go back and show you all the pictures of this chapter. And then I'm going to stop the video and then I'll make a new one. Okay, so here's chapter 2. The Vanishing Glass. And there's Harry. And you can imagine now he's sitting in his cupboard under the stairs. That's where he sleeps. And the spiders. And there's all Dudley's presents. Now we know what all those presents are for. And I guess that's going to be at the zoo. And from the description from J.K. Rowling, I'd guess that's Dudley. And there's Harry. And then we have this large boa constrictor. And then we're done with that chapter. So tune in to the next video for the rest of the chapter or another 10 minutes of the chapter.